The ballroom glowed with golden light, the kind that made everything look softer, happier, perfect, at least on the surface. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above a sea of white roses, laughter, and champagne bubbles. A string quartet played something delicate, but underneath the music, there was a tension so sharp it could slice through silk. Lila Turner stood at the center of it all, the bride in her sleeveless ivory gown, veil cascading down her back like mist. Her smile was flawless. Her heart was not. The microphone trembled slightly in her hand as she looked out over the crowd. Co-workers, distant relatives, college friends, all gathered to celebrate her love story. Her eyes drifted to the head table. Evan sat there, impossibly charming in his navy tuxedo, his jawline the kind that photographers love. He was laughing with Chloe, her maid of honor, her best friend since high school, the woman who had held her hand through every breakup, every heartbreak, every dream, the woman she trusted with everything, even the planning of this wedding. Chloe's hand brushed Evan's arm in a gesture so light most would have missed it, but Lila didn't. She caught the quick glance they shared. Brief, electric, and wrong. Her stomach turned, but her lips didn't flinch. Not yet. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" she said softly, mostly to herself. The microphone picked up her voice. The room went still, all eyes turning to her. Evan raised his glass. "To my beautiful wife," he said with that smile that used to make her melt. "You've made me the luckiest man alive." She forced a laugh. "Let's hope you stay that way." The crowd chuckled, thinking it was banter. Only she knew the weight of her words. She began her speech, her voice steady but low, like a violin string pulled tight. "I've been told that marriage is built on trust, on faith, on honesty." She looked directly at Evan, "and sometimes on courage." A few guests smiled, expecting tears of joy. Lila's eyes flicked toward Chloe, radiant, confident, unaware that the mask was already cracking. Lila's mind flashed back to an hour earlier, when she'd stood alone in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her phone had buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Check the USB." She'd found it on the vanity, small and silver. She almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity, or maybe intuition, made her slide it into her laptop. What she saw made her blood run cold. Now standing before everyone, she felt that same icy tremor inside her chest. Her fingers dug into the microphone. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "They say love is patient, love is kind," she continued, "but they never tell you what to do when love turns into something else. Something that makes you question who you've been sleeping next to." The crowd tittered uneasily. Evan's smile wavered. Chloe's hand froze around her wine glass. Lila took a deep breath. "Before we continue tonight, I just want to say how grateful I am for everyone here. For those who stood by us, supported us, believed in us." She looked around the room, her eyes landing on a few of her closest friends who smiled back, oblivious to the storm brewing. "And for those who taught me that truth, even when painful, is still a kind of love." Her voice trembled on that last word, but not from weakness, from the effort it took to hold back everything else. She raised her champagne flute. "To honesty," she said quietly. Evan clinked his glass against hers, his eyes searching her face for warmth he couldn't find. Chloe smiled too brightly, as if overcompensating. As the crowd echoed the toast, Lila lowered her glass. Her reflection in the liquid shimmered. A woman she barely recognized anymore. Calm, controlled, dangerous. She handed the microphone back to the DJ, her lips curling into something that looked like serenity, but felt like vengeance. The music swelled again. Guests clapped. Evan leaned in to kiss her cheek. The scent of his cologne, once comforting, now made her stomach twist. She whispered so only he could hear, her voice smooth, almost tender. "Enjoy the party, Evan. You'll want to remember every minute of it." And as she walked back to her seat, her veil trailing behind her like a ghost, the clock in her mind started ticking. 1 hour. That's all she needed. 1 hour before the truth burned this fairy tale to ashes. The music carried through the ballroom, but Lila barely heard it. Every laugh, every camera flash, Every congratulations felt like background noise to the movie replaying in her head, the one that had started long before tonight's toasts and flowers. It began with something small. It always does. 2 weeks before the wedding, Lila had been cleaning out the backseat of Evan's car. They were finalizing details for their honeymoon, laughing over flight delays and tropical storms. Then her fingers brushed something smooth and cool beneath the passenger seat, a gold earring, teardrop-shaped with a tiny pearl. It wasn't hers. When she held it up, Evan barely flinched. "Oh," he said, smiling too quickly. "That's Chloe's. She rode with me to the cake tasting last week. Must have fallen off." It sounded reasonable. Chloe had been helping with everything. Dresses, flowers, catering. Lila forced a laugh, teasing, "Guess that's what I get for trusting you alone with my maid of honor." He grinned and kissed her forehead. "Guess so." But later that night, when Chloe came over with a folder of wedding contracts, Lila noticed something she hadn't before. That same gold earring gleaming in Chloe's left ear. And suddenly, that easy explanation didn't feel so easy anymore. The next few days felt off. Evan started working late. Chloe began canceling lunch plans. They both claimed stress, exhaustion, bad timing, but their excuses overlapped too neatly. Their energy shifted, an invisible wall between them and Lila. One night she overheard Evan whispering in the kitchen. "No one suspects anything," he murmured. Then silence followed by a soft laugh that made her skin crawl. When she stepped in, he jumped like he'd seen a ghost. "Who was that?" she asked. "Just work," he said. "You scared me." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But the lie had a pulse now. The next morning, while ironing his shirt, she found a crumpled hotel receipt in his pocket. The date was from last Friday, the night he claimed to be out with his groomsmen. The room was booked for 2. Her hands shook so badly she burned the sleeve with the iron. She sat on the edge of their bed, staring at the paper until her tears blurred the ink. She imagined Chloe's laugh, her perfume, the way Evan looked at her during fittings. Admiration disguised as friendship. She couldn't confront them, not yet, because something deeper than heartbreak was taking root. Resolve. That night, Lila reached out to someone she trusted more than anyone. Her old college friend Jenna, a photographer who'd been hired to shoot the wedding. She called her under the guise of checking shot lists, but her voice cracked halfway through. "Jenna," she said, "I think something's wrong." "What do you mean, wrong?" Lila hesitated, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I think Evan's seeing someone, and I think it's Chloe." A silence hung heavy between them. Then Jenna said softly, "Do you want proof?" Lila didn't answer. She didn't need to. Over the next few days, Jenna quietly started observing. At the rehearsal dinner, she caught subtle moments others missed. Chloe brushing lint from Evan's lapel, their heads too close during whispered jokes, the way they disappeared together for just a minute too long. When she showed Lila the photos, it wasn't the physical closeness that destroyed her. It was the ease, the way they looked like a couple who had practiced being one. Lila's breath caught. "Send them to me," she whispered. That night she sat in her apartment, lights off, scrolling through the images on her laptop. One after another, her world came undone. Her engagement ring glinted mockingly in the glow of the screen. Then came the final picture, not from the dinner, but from the parking lot behind the venue. Evan and Chloe, kissing in the shadows near the catering truck. Her maid of honor's hands tangled in her fiancé's hair, his arm tight around her waist. Lila didn't cry this time. Her tears had dried into something sharper. A part of her died in that moment, the naive part that believed loyalty was guaranteed by love. What replaced it was colder, steadier. She sat back, took a deep breath, and whispered to the empty room, "Not yet. Let them have their moment. Let them think they've won." She began to plan, carefully, meticulously. She copied every photo to a hidden folder, created backups, and reached out to Jenna again. "I need your help with one more thing," she said. "Something for the reception." Jenna hesitated. "Lila, what are you going to do?" "Tell the truth," Lila replied, "but not with words." By the time the wedding day arrived, No one suspected anything. Lila smiled through her makeup session, posed for photos, laughed with Chloe over champagne. Her performance was flawless. But when Chloe adjusted Lila's veil before walking down the aisle, their eyes met in the mirror. For just a second, something in Chloe's expression faltered. Guilt? Fear? Lila couldn't tell. She only smiled and said softly, "Thank you for standing by me, always." Then she turned toward the doors where Evan waited. Handsome, confident, doomed. The organ began to play. Lila stepped forward, her bouquet trembling slightly in her hands. And beneath the lace and satin, beneath the vows and smiles, she carried her secret like a blade hidden beneath silk. Because the moment they said "I do," she already knew how and when she'd say "I'm done." The morning after the rehearsal dinner, sunlight spilled across the suite like honey over glass. The world outside was beautiful, calm, ordinary, and that somehow made everything feel crueler. Lila lay still in bed beside Evan, listening to his slow, even breathing. He slept so peacefully as if lies required no rest. The sheets between them felt like a mile of cold air. She turned her face toward the ceiling and let one thought sink in completely. He doesn't love me, and he's pretending he does. There are moments when grief breaks you, but there are others when it forges you. That morning, Lila stopped being the woman who begged for honesty. She became the woman who would show it. By noon, she was at her friend Jenna's studio, her fingers still trembling as she handed over the flash drive. The footage wasn't just photos anymore. Jenna had found small clips, bits of video she'd captured without thinking. Evan's hand brushing Chloe's waist behind the tent. Chloe giggling into his shoulder, a shadow of a kiss caught between seconds. Lila watched it in silence. The sound of her own heartbeat filled her ears. When the final clip ended, she said quietly, "Can you help me edit this?" Jenna turned toward her, unsure. "Edit it into what, exactly?" "A story," Lila said. "The truth, from beginning to end." Jenna hesitated. "Lila, are you sure? This could destroy everything." Lila's eyes met hers, steady, calm. "Everything's already destroyed. I just want to make sure they're the ones standing in the ashes." For the next 2 days, the two women worked in secret. The screen glowed through the night, clips fading between soft music and raw betrayal. They opened with smiling childhood photos. Lila and Chloe at 16, arms around each other. College pictures of Lila and Evan when they first met. Then slowly, gently, the mood shifted. Shadows deepened, faces changed. And by the final frame, that single kiss behind the catering tent, the story told itself. Lila watched the final cut in silence, tears sliding down her cheeks without sound. Then she wiped them away and whispered, "Perfect." Jenna touched her shoulder. "You don't owe them mercy." "I'm not giving them mercy," Lila replied. "I'm giving them honesty." The wedding morning arrived like a stage call. Every sound felt amplified. The rustle of the dress, the hiss of a curling iron, the nervous chatter of bridesmaids. Lila sat before the mirror as the makeup artist finished her lipstick, that perfect soft rose that matched her bouquet. She looked calm, but beneath that serenity, a quiet electricity pulsed through her veins. When Chloe entered the bridal suite, Lila caught her reflection in the mirror. Her former best friend was stunning in her blush pink gown, eyes sparkling, voice bright. "Oh, Lila, you look like a dream." Lila smiled back. "Thanks to you. You've been amazing through all this." Chloe waved it off. "Please, it's your day. You deserve every bit of it." The words hung heavy in the air. "You deserve this," like a cruel echo. Chloe turned away to fix her earring, unaware that the other woman in the room had already seen her naked truth. For a heartbeat, Lila almost faltered. The memories of their shared past flashed in her mind. Sleepovers, heartbreaks, promises. But then she remembered the hotel receipt, the footage, the way they'd laughed behind her back while pretending to celebrate her future. No, this wasn't friendship anymore. This was theater, and she was finally ready for her role. By afternoon, the ceremony unfolded in a blur. Vows, applause, the kiss. Lila smiled for the cameras, kissed Evan's cheek, and thought of all the lies stitched beneath those E-dues. But the real performance would begin that night. As the reception filled with laughter and champagne, Lila discreetly met the DJ, a small flash drive hidden in her palm. "It's the updated slideshow," she said sweetly. "Play it right before the dance." He nodded, none the wiser. She returned to her seat, the picture of a radiant bride. Evan slipped an arm around her waist. "Nervous?" he teased. She smiled up at him. "No, just excited for what's next." If he noticed the glint in her eyes, he didn't understand it. When it was her turn for the toast, she stood gracefully, feeling the entire room turn toward her. She looked over the guests, her family, her new husband, her maid of honor. Every smile in the room felt borrowed, temporary. "Thank you all," she began, "for being part of our story." Her voice was soft but carried through every corner of the room. "I've learned that love isn't just about joy and laughter. It's also about truth and the courage to face it." A few guests clapped. Evan grinned, proud. Chloe raised her glass, her eyes glimmering. Lila smiled back, but there was something new in her tone now, a calm edge that no one could place. "So before we move to the first dance," she continued, "I thought we could share a little video, a few memories of love, loyalty, and perspective." She gave a small nod to the DJ. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. Lila's chest tightened, not from fear but from release. Her heart beat steady, controlled. In 60 seconds, the world would stop pretending. The ballroom dimmed into a hush. Guests turned their chairs toward the giant screen behind the head table, the one framed in white roses and fairy lights. The only sound was the faint clink of champagne glasses and the hum of the projector. At first it was sweet, nostalgic. The video began with gentle piano music and baby photos of Lila and Evan. The crowd smiled. "Oh," someone whispered. "How adorable." Clips from their engagement played next. Evan on one knee, Lila's hand over her mouth, both laughing under a cascade of fairy lights. Evan relaxed, grinning. He leaned toward her. "You outdid yourself," he murmured. But Lila didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the screen, unblinking. The slideshow shifted. The piano faded. The laughter died. Now came footage no one expected. The background blurred into a new clip. Grainy, candid. The rehearsal dinner. Chloe brushing something off Evan's collar, her hand lingering. Another clip. Their heads close together, whispering behind the cake table. Laughter, soft and private. The music stopped altogether. Someone in the crowd gasped. Evan straightened. "What the hell?" Then came the final clip. The camera panned behind the catering tent, slightly shaky, Evan's tux jacket off. Chloe pressed against the wall, her hands clutching his shirt, his mouth on hers. A sound, muffled laughter, before the screen froze on their faces, mid-kiss. Silence. For a long, awful moment, the ballroom was a vacuum. No air, no movement. Then came the whispers. Dozens at first, then hundreds. "Oh my God! Is that... Wait, that's her maid of honor!" Chloe's wine glass shattered against the floor. She stumbled to her feet, face white as bone. "Lila, this isn't..." Evan shot up beside her. "Turn it off," he barked at the DJ. "Turn that damn thing off!" The DJ just stood frozen, eyes wide as if touching the equipment might burn him. Lila rose slowly from her chair, calm, elegant, terrifyingly composed. The soft glow of the projector cast her in pale gold, like a statue carved from truth itself. She picked up the microphone. "Don't," she said gently. "Let it play." But the video had already ended. The screen stayed frozen on that single frame. Her husband's betrayal immortalized in pixels. Lila's gaze swept across the crowd, then returned to the two people who'd ruined her life and dared to smile while doing it. "I wasn't going to say anything tonight," she began, her voice soft but cutting through the air like glass, "because I thought silence would hurt less. But I realized silence only protects the guilty." Evan took a step forward, his voice low, pleading. "Lila, please. This isn't what it looks like." She cut him off with a sharp laugh. "Oh, you're right. It's worse than what it looks like." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones were already out, cameras recording. Lila turned to Chloe, who looked like she might faint. And you, my maid of honor, my best friend since I was 15. You held my hand when I cried over every man who ever hurt me. And all along you were practicing how to take his place. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. It was a mistake. I swear, it was a mistake. Lila tilted her head, her smile cold. A mistake? You made it twice. The night before the wedding and the morning after. Jenna's camera doesn't lie. The crowd murmured louder now, a low roar of disbelief, anger, fascination. Evan tried again. Let's talk privately. No, Lila said, her voice rising, clear and unwavering. You lied privately. You cheated privately. You can face the truth publicly. A hush fell again. Even the waiters had stopped moving. Lila turned back to the guests, her tone shifting. Calm, steady, raw. I planned this day for love, but apparently I was the only one planning it for marriage. So tonight, instead of a first dance, let's have a lesson. Never ignore your instincts. Never let a smile blind you to deceit. And never, ever mistake loyalty for weakness. Then she raised her glass, her fingers no longer trembling. To honesty, she said again. No one toasted back. Evan stood frozen, face drained of color. Chloe was crying openly now, whispering apologies no one wanted to hear. Lila set the microphone down, the soft clink echoing like a final bell. She turned to her guests, her family, her friends, her witnesses, and gave a small, graceful bow. Thank you for coming. The wedding's over. Then she walked out, slow, composed, veil trailing behind her like a white flame. Outside, the night air hit her face like release. The music inside had stopped. All that was left was the muffled chaos of people shouting, the end of a fairy tale collapsing under the weight of truth. Jenna was waiting by the doors, car keys in hand. You okay? She asked quietly. Lila smiled faintly, eyes glistening but dry. For the first time in a long time, yeah. She took one last look at the glowing ballroom. The laughter, the shock, the faces pressed against the glass, and then turned away. Inside, Chloe and Evan argued, desperate to rewrite what had already been written. But outside, beneath the stars, Lila finally felt free. Because sometimes the most beautiful thing a bride can wear is vengeance disguised as grace. The next morning, the world woke up before Lila did. By dawn, her wedding had become a headline. Bride exposes cheating groom and maid of honor in shocking reception reveal. The video, shaky, grainy, filmed by a guest's phone, was already viral. Millions of views in hours. Comments flooded in. Admiration, disbelief, rage. And through all that noise, Lila sat on the edge of a hotel bed in silence, her white gown crumpled across the floor like a ghost of what could have been. The city outside hummed with traffic and gossip. She hadn't slept. When she finally looked in the mirror, she didn't see a victim. She saw a woman reborn from humiliation, stripped bare, but standing. Her phone buzzed for the 100th time. She ignored the texts from relatives, reporters, even her mother. But when the name Evan appeared, she stared at it for a long moment before finally answering. Lila? His voice cracked through the line, frantic and low. Please, we need to talk. You've destroyed everything. She let out a breath. Correction. You destroyed everything. I just turned on the lights. Do you have any idea what this looks like for me? My clients saw that video. Oh, I'm sorry, she interrupted coldly. Did my humiliation inconvenience your business? Lila, I made a mistake, he said. A stupid, meaningless. Her voice sharpened. You slept with my best friend while we planned a wedding together. That's not meaningless. That's cruelty with coordination. He fell silent, breathing heavy on the other end. Can we meet? Just talk, face to face. She hesitated, not because she wanted closure, but because she wanted to see what guilt looked like in daylight. Fine, she said finally. 1 hour, at the pier. Wind at the waterfront carried salt and truth. The sky hung low and gray, the kind of morning that smelled like endings. Evan arrived first. No tuxedo now, just a wrinkled shirt, his tie shoved in a pocket. He looked older, smaller. Lila, he said as she approached. You didn't have to do it like that. She folded her arms. Did you expect me to cry quietly while you danced with her? He flinched. I wasn't thinking clearly. It just happened. We were drunk, emotional. Stop! Her voice was steady, lethal. You don't get to make this sound like gravity. You chose her. He tried to reach for her hand. She stepped back. I loved you, she said, the words trembling. I believed in you. I defended you when people said you were too charming to be loyal. I am loyal, she laughed, one sharp, disbelieving sound that cut the wind. To yourself, maybe. Evan's eyes dropped. Chloe means nothing. I'll fix this. I'll go public. I'll tell people the truth. She pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it to him. Here's the truth, she said. He opened it. Inside were printed photos, the same images from Jenna's footage, and a flash drive labeled, for the lawyers. His face drained of color. What is this? Proof, she said simply. You'll need them for your divorce hearing. He looked up, voice cracking. You're ending it. I'm starting over. She turned to leave but paused long enough to say one last thing. You know, last night for a moment, I thought I'd regret it, humiliating you in front of everyone. But then I realized something. He looked at her, desperate, pleading. I didn't humiliate you, she said. I revealed you. You did the rest. Then she walked away, her heels clicking against the wooden pier like punctuation marks. Each step a full stop on a story that no longer belonged to him. That afternoon, Chloe tried to call, then text, then email. Lila deleted every message unread, but when the knock came at her hotel door, she opened it, not out of forgiveness, but curiosity. Chloe stood there, eyes swollen, voice trembling. Please, Lila, I'm so sorry. I don't even know why it happened. You don't know why you slept with my fiancé? Lila asked, tilting her head. You might want to start figuring that out before you ruin someone else's life. I never meant to hurt you, Chloe said. It got complicated. Complicated? Lila's voice rose, raw. You were supposed to be my sister. You stood beside me in my dress, smiling, knowing what you did. You didn't just betray me, Chloe. You performed it. Tears spilled down Chloe's cheeks. Please don't hate me. Hate you? Lila whispered. No, I don't waste hate on people who already destroyed themselves. She shut the door slowly. The click echoed like a final sentence. By evening, her phone buzzed again. This time a call from Jenna. It's everywhere, Jenna said softly. Even talk shows are picking it up. They're calling you the fearless bride. Lila laughed quietly, rubbing her temple. Fearless? No, I was terrified. But sometimes fears just fuel with better PR. Jenna hesitated. You okay? Lila looked out the window at the skyline, glowing orange against the fading day. Not yet, she said, but I will be. Outside, the city carried on. Cars moving, lights flickering, life humming. Somewhere, Evan was scrambling to save his image. Somewhere, Chloe was drowning in guilt. And somewhere deeper inside herself, Lila was finally breathing without the weight of pretending. Because freedom doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes it walks out of a ballroom wearing a torn wedding dress and dignity that no one can take away. Weeks passed, though time felt strange, stretched, uneven, like a song she didn't remember learning the words to. The wedding dress was long gone, the venue bill settled, the ring tucked into a velvet box she couldn't yet throw away. But each morning, the ache in Lila's chest grew lighter. She had survived the fire, and somehow she'd come out cleaner. It started with small things. She moved out of the apartment she'd shared with Evan and into a sunlit loft near the coast. The windows faced the ocean, endless and indifferent, and that felt right. She liked that the sea didn't care who she had been before. Her days were quiet at first. She drank coffee on the balcony barefoot, her hair loose in the breeze. She scrolled through her phone less and less, refusing to feed on the noise of her own scandal. But the noise came anyway, because the internet had found her. Her story, the bride who exposed her groom's affair at the reception, was everywhere. Talk shows debated whether she was cruel or courageous. Feminist blogs called her a hero. Strangers sent messages from across the world. Women who'd been cheated on, men who'd been lied to, people who'd been gaslighted into silence. Her inbox overflowed with one repeated line. "You made me feel less alone." At first, she didn't know what to do with that. She hadn't wanted to be anyone's symbol. She just wanted her truth to stop bleeding quietly in the dark. But every message made her realize something deeper. Sometimes the most private wounds can become someone else's survival map. So she wrote back. Not to all of them, just a few at first, then more. And one evening, with the ocean roaring beneath her window, Lila opened her laptop and began typing. The title came easily, "To the Ones Who Betray Love." Her words poured out like confession and clarity at once. "You told me lies wrapped in promises. You made me doubt my memory, my worth, my instincts. But you forgot something. A woman who survives betrayal learns a new language. Truth spoken without trembling." She didn't write to shame anyone. She wrote to remember herself. When she finished, she clicked post and closed the screen, thinking little of it. By morning, her piece had thousands of shares, then hundreds of thousands. It was translated into 7 languages by strangers who said it gave them the courage to leave. Someone commented, "She didn't ruin her wedding. She reclaimed her life." Lila smiled for the first time in days. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. Not digital this time, but handwritten on thick paper. The handwriting was familiar. Evans. She stared at it for a long moment before opening it. "I don't expect forgiveness," it read. "I just want you to know that losing you showed me who I really am. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I hope someday you find peace." She folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Not as a keepsake, but as evidence. Not of regret, but of closure. Because peace wasn't something she had to find through him anymore. She was already living it. Spring came early that year. The air was soft, the sea warm. Lila spent more time outdoors, painting again, walking barefoot on the sand, letting the salt wind erase what was left of her sadness. Jenna visited one weekend, camera in hand. "Smile," she said, snapping a photo as Lila laughed. "Don't you dare post that," Lila teased. "Too late," Jenna grinned. "The world deserves to see what healing looks like." That evening, as they watched the sunset, Jenna asked quietly, "If you could go back, would you change anything?" Lila thought for a long moment, her eyes tracing the horizon. "I used to wish I'd never found out," she said, "but now I know. Truth isn't what ruins us, it's what saves us." Months later, a publisher reached out. They wanted her to expand her letter into a memoir, a book about love, betrayal, and resilience. The idea terrified her, but also thrilled her. She said yes. Writing became her ritual. Each chapter peeled away a layer of pain until only wisdom remained. She titled it, "The Woman Who Walked Away." And when the book finally launched, she didn't attend a fancy party or red carpet signing. She just stood by the ocean again, holding the first printed copy in her hands, feeling the waves tug at her feet. The water was cold, alive, honest. She whispered into the wind, "You can't stop people from lying, but you can stop them from defining your worth." She dropped a single rose into the waves, not for Evan, not for Chloe, but for the girl she'd been before all this. The rose drifted out, spinning slowly, until it was just a speck of color against the vast, forgiving blue. Lila turned away from the ocean, the sunset glowing behind her like a benediction. She wasn't just the bride who exposed a liar. She was the woman who walked away and never looked back.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.